Hey guys, welcome back to more relationship stories. In this video, my mother tried to steal my property, claiming that I owe her everything. She even went to court to try and ruin my life. Let's dive right into the video. So my mother is not a good person. I never thought I would be saying that. I knew she was troubled my whole life, could always remember her drinking and doing drugs, bringing strange men over all the time. But I never thought she was a bad person, just someone who had done bad things and had bad things done/happened to her. And by the way guys, if you hear construction noise in the background, I'm very sorry. Unfortunately, I cannot change that at the moment. I don't know who my father is. I don't think I'll ever find out due to the substances my mother was always on. She would get abusive at times, nothing major, but I remember asking about my dad once and getting the biggest slap of my life. So I never asked again. "You don't have one," she scolded. Remember that. That was the most legible sentence she had strung together in many years. She slurs and stumbles over her words, but that one came out crisp. Whoever this man was had done something wrong, and child me hated him. I guess I still do. I don't think that I do want to know who he is. I have two older brothers who mostly looked after me, and they saw my mother struggling. They knew she would not get over these addictions. Any money she made went towards her drugs, and any she found of ours went to her alcohol. Sure, both of my brothers would work after school and make sure to put the money towards paying the bills and getting us food. They tried to get my mom into rehab, but that would mean the three of us would be split up, as we wouldn't have an adult looking after us, even though she was not doing that. There were a few occasions where she couldn't afford her drugs or drinks, and in those times, mere hours before her withdrawals would send her over the edge, she was the loveliest woman you would ever meet. She would tell us stories from when we were little, before her addictions, and she would cook for us or stroke our hair. She was a different woman. You might be wondering why I'm telling you all of this. Well, it's because I think it's important to note that although my mom was neglectful, it was not wholly her fault. These substances did this to her, the people who got her hooked did this to her, the people who didn't get her help did this to her, and my mom preferred my brothers over me, I think because she knew that they were basically raising me. I was too young to get a job and help out, but she did not see that. "It's all your fault," she would say to me. "I cannot get a job because of you." I knew that was not true, but the amount of times she would say it did have me questioning myself. Once I was old enough, I got a part-time job. I worked alongside my brothers to help keep our home together and in one piece. Our mom just kept getting worse, but the three of us stayed in school, got good grades, and began looking for better jobs. I did not realize until later, but my brothers waited until I was old enough to move out before doing so themselves. We all left, moved to a different house. We were all over 18, so could not be separated. We paid for our mom to get into rehab, and through all the screaming as she was taken away, we knew we had done the right thing. We visited her as often as we could, and it was truly amazing to see her progress. At the start, she would cuss us out harder than ever, attempting to reach across the table and hit us. I got most of the insults. "If you were never born, none of this would have happened. I wouldn't have needed to be here," she yelled at the guards, dragged her away, but as she got better, we began seeing that lovely side of her that we would never been able to get to know. She got out a few times and ended up relapsing, as often happens when the addiction is so bad. "They think they can snap out of it again," one of the workers told us the first time we brought her back. Overall, she was in rehab for 5 years, and in this time, me and my brothers worked so hard. I ended up buying a house with my girlfriend. Nothing amazing, but still a great feat in this economy. I ended up in the IT field also along with my brothers, so I had a great stable job. When my mom got out this next time, she seemed different. She seemed so much more committed to staying clean, saying that she wanted to do this for us, needed to do this for us. Perhaps her commitment to rebuilding the family is what inevitably caused her to relapse. She had spent days with us saying how much she wanted to get to know us all again. What had we been up to? What we were like when we were younger, away from her tinted spectacles called alcohol. It was sweet, the progress we saw was amazing. And then I got a legal notice through the door perhaps a month after my mom had been released, the longest she had gone outside of rehab without relapsing. It stated that my mom was suing me. Shock is not a word that would begin to describe how I was feeling. I was just devastated. I knew immediately that she had relapsed. Why else would she do something so wacky? In her statement section, it claims that she feels she deserves my home due to the sacrifices she has made for him to be born. and that his existence ruined my opportunities. She was demanding ownership of my house and compensation. My girlfriend was just as confused as I, and so were my brothers once I rang to tell them. They came over and we all read over it again and again. It was so bizarre. Over the next few weeks we heard nothing from my mom. For a moment I thought she must have been taken back to rehab, but then again we would have gotten a notification of this. This was not the case though, and the lawsuit was moving forward. We initially had a smaller court case to iron out details, and because I didn't have a lawyer yet, it was more for her to officially give her case and serve me the papers. Please detail why you are suing, the judge stated, staring down at my mom, who was dressed in a smart outfit. She seemed fine, sane of mind, but I knew that look in her eyes and the way her hands twitched. She was high. In a weird way, it made it better to know that she only despised me when she was off her head. This was not her, but I knew that I would need to fight her as if it was, and that crushed me. My son here has ruined my life. From the moment he was born, I've been crushed at every opportunity. Hell, even while I was pregnant, my life was a mess. All because of him, she started, spouting everything I had heard her say for the past years of my life, and then she began just making things up. She took a deep breath and started crying, and boy did it look real. He tried to hurt me once. He put a kitchen knife to my throat while I begged him to stop. That's around the time he began getting addicted to drugs, hanging with the wrong crowd. I tried to stop him, but it was too late. You just cannot control everything these kids do. I promise I tried. She was weeping so hard that I almost believed her myself. I had never seen her like this, never seen her so sure of her own lies. I wondered if she was retelling her own story. He abandoned me, she whispered. After that court, which I swiftly left to get to my car, where I had the biggest meltdown of my life, she began taking things online. She had never really been tech-savvy, but recently had made a Facebook account and found our extended relatives, joining family group chats and speaking up a storm about how terrible I am and all the nasty things I've done. Her main theme was that I abandoned her. "Mom, why are you doing this?" I asked, and she had called around to my house asking for money, as if this lawsuit was not going on. She looked so dazed, so out of it. "Give me money, I need food." I knew she was not gonna buy food with it. "Why are you suing your son?" "Because you've ruined my life. Ever since you came into it, things got so horrible for me. I cannot live without drugs, cannot sleep without alcohol. I have no job, no money, my house is barely livable, and I cannot take it. It's all your fault." "How is any of that my fault? You chose to have me. You!" I screamed back. I'd had enough of this one-sided harassment. She looked so shocked. Never in my life had I spoken back, and it felt good. "Mom, my brothers raised me because you were not there. When you were here, you were not mentally present. For the first 15 years of my life, you didn't even say happy birthday. I counted. I don't think you remembered. My brothers had to buy all my clothes, my uniform, my food, while you were doing what? Getting drunk and high? Nope, not my issue. And this house, it doesn't belong to you. You are entitled to nothing of mine." I slammed the door on her and went inside. She stayed for ages, banging on my door. I called my brothers, who ended up coming over to calm her down. They eventually talked her into going back with them. I heard her starting to shout at them too, so at least it's not just me getting all this stick. In my rage and realization that there was no talking this woman out of this, I hired a lawyer. And a good one. I knew I needed it. I gathered all sorts of evidence of my independence, the neglect from my childhood, everything and anything. We managed to find pay slips for all 3 of my brothers, showing that we started working as soon as possible, and transactions which proved that we paid all the rent. Of course, our mom's rehab notices came to us, so we gathered those up as well. If anything, I would hope that this case would allow her to get some proper help once and for all. Rifts were caused in our extended family the more that things started coming out. Most of them hadn't had a clue that she was so bad in her earlier years until they found out that she was in rehab. People were taking sides, arguments were had. It was awful. We collected statements next from teachers, neighbors, and anyone who might have seen how my mom used to be and how what she was saying about me was not true. We pulled up medical records and tests done on myself as a child and in my teens, none of which ever mentioning drug abuse. When the final court date rolled around, my mom sat there with a blank face while her lawyer spoke for her. God knows what she had taken. My lawyer went off bringing up all of the statements from old friends confirming I was not with wrong crowds, proof of my mom's neglect, and pretty much anything which disproves that I ruined her and all the other things she was just claiming. "I cannot believe you," she randomly screamed during the trial, snapping out of whatever trance she was in. She started thrashing around, shouting insults at anyone she could see. "Oh, and she is fat," was my favorite, aimed at the judge. The judge ended up ruling in favor of me, of course, and dismissed my mom's case, requiring her to pay for my legal fees once she was better. It was also ordered that she go back to rehab, and this time to a better one that the state was partially covering, something I hope helps her get proper help this time. And the next one is titled, "Why are you not working overtime whilst your family member is dying?" And by the way, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily videos. So I used to work for a company that had two different sets of working hours. The people who had been there over 4 years were on an older 36.25 hour per week contract, but were allowed to take a day of flexi-time holiday per month if they had worked 7.25 hours extra in the previous month. All of the newer staff were on a 35 hours per week flexi-hour contract, meaning they could be flexible at their start and end times, but they didn't get an extra holiday per month. Both contracts cropped the number of hours you could carry over to the next month to 12 hours. I had been at the company for years and I was regularly over 20 hours in credit at the end of the month. Then I found out that my dad had terminal cancer, mesothelioma, and I was devastated. He was all I had. My mom had died when I was a teenager, I had no siblings, and dad lived 100 miles away from me on his own. I carried on at work because I was skinned and quitting my job would have bankrupted me. I visited him as often as I could while trying not to take so many days compassionate leave so that when dad got really sick, I could work from his house so I could be there for him. I called him daily to check in with him. I went home for Christmas and that's when I discovered dad had been covering up how ill he had become. I put the working from dad's plan into action, went back to work to get a laptop and decided that I was working from home until the inevitable happened. He was rushed into hospital on December the 27th and he died on his birthday just over a week later, 6 months after he found out he was ill. It took me a couple weeks to clear his house out. HR gave me 3 weeks compassionate leave to sort out his affairs, which was good of them, and when I returned to work I had missed my yearly appraisal. So it was done a couple days after my return. My manager went through my objectives and then said he wasn't happy that I had only been working my contracted hours for the past 6 months and that if I wanted to get anywhere in the company, I would need to work extra hours to make the step up. Needless to say, that didn't go down very well. I asked if he was serious and told him that he knew that for the past 6 months my only family member had been terminally ill, but I had still stayed and had not taken advantage of the compassionate leave as much as I should have. I was fuming. Now about a year before all of this, HR had offered to let us switch across to the flexi hours contract if we wanted, but we all refused because of the extra holidays we could take. I sent HR an email telling them I would like to switch contracts. From that point forward, I went from being 20 to 30 hours over per month on a 36.25 hour per week contract to being within an hour of my contracted hours on my new 35 hour flexi-time contract. The next one is titled, "My friend's cousin complied with his cool family's demands." From r/petty revenge. This happened a while back, maybe 3 to 4 years. My college friend told me about how his cousin basically screwed over his family by moving out when they told him to. Note, to make it easier to follow, I'm gonna use fake names: my cousin Jack, cousin sister Tina, cousin's parents Bob and Mary. So Jack is roughly 28 and still living with his parents. But he pays their bills, electricity, water, internet, etc. And this is a big 2-story house, so the bill is big too. His sister, 24, had left the house by then and gotten married to a guy that makes good money. She had taken credit for paying the bills and convinced Bob and Mary to kick him out because he is apparently a shut-in loser because none of them understood his job. A bit of backstory on their parents: my friend tells me that they are like those stereotypical teens in those cliché high school movies. Basically, they look down on nerds and think people who study hard are uncool, that type of thing. Anyway, they kept that mentality even after growing up and having kids, so they always looked down on Jack for being nerdy and favoritized Tina because she was pretty and popular in high school, but apparently Jack did not really care because his personal life had friends he cared about and he connected more with his relatives. So they all confront him, and after bad-mouthing him about how he stays in his room mostly and how his sister, her husband and child need the space, told him he has until the end of the month to leave. This was done close to the first week and Jack did not say a word, he just nodded, and then left by the end of that week and moved 3 cities away to a city closer to his other relatives. 2 months go by and his sister calls him asking why this month's bills were not paid as their lights and water had been shut off. He tells her that she should have paid them since she was allegedly paying them before. About a week goes by and he gets a call from his parents explaining how his sister confessed to everything and how he can come back and have his old room back so as long as he kept helping them pay the bills. He refused, saying that he's enjoying living by himself now and how he can focus on his work more because he's away from them. Afterwards, he blocked their numbers and now they have to pay for it themselves. He doesn't know what happened after because they are no longer invited to family gatherings. And the next one is an Am I the A-hole story. My wife has a high-paying job and earns significantly more than I do. I work as a teacher and make around 40k, while she works in the private sector and makes 300 to 400k after tax. We split our finances equitably, with her paying 70% to my 30%. A little background: her parents both immigrated to this country, so she and her sisters could succeed in life and now all have very high-paying jobs, one working in tech and the other one being a surgeon. Meanwhile, my parents work government jobs and my sister lives on benefits, so we are a relatively low-income family. My wife did help my younger sister when she became a single mom at a young age by offering her a secretary job at her office, but my sister quit after a month as she found it too difficult. Which I can understand, as she was raising a baby on her own. Recently her parents retired and she and her sister give them around $2,000 every month, which I find ridiculous. They have pensions, why do they need 6k? She assured me this money doesn't come out of our joint account. However, when I brought it up, my parents were also retired and could use the help. She told me that if I could afford to send it from my own salary, then I should. I was shocked and angry. My parents only had me to depend on while her sisters made a lot of money, so her parents would be fine either way. My wife told her parents sacrificed a lot by moving to this country. It's her responsibility and my parents should be my responsibility. She says I'm being an a-hole for asking her to support my parents when she has never put pressure towards me for not contributing more to our household. We had a similar argument before about loaning my sister some money to put a down payment on her house, but my wife said she would not use her money as she thinks my sister is unreliable and won't pay her back. I just don't understand how she can be so cheap because she earns so much more than me. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for asking my wife to support my family? And here, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. A comment on Reddit said, did you all catch his comment stating that his wife does the majority of household tasks and parenting? You are the a-hole, sir. Maybe you should go move in and care for your elderly parents to see what it's like to work a job and then come home and have to work even more. Comment number 2, you are the a-hole not for asking but for refusing to accept her answer. She is right that she doesn't have an obligation to your parents and you don't have an obligation to hers. Comment number 3, you are the a-hole, your entitlement is absolutely incredible, and yes, I would feel the same way if the genders were reversed. It sounds like your sister especially is an irresponsible freeloader. Update to the story, a lot of you are asking why parents need help when they have a pension. Well, my dad has Parkinson's and his condition is only gonna get worse. My mom is not strong enough to help with his diaper, etc. The only option is to put him in a care home and separate the two of them because we cannot afford a live-in carer. This is frustrating to me as my wife knows all of this and her parents are in great health currently. Her offering money would no way break her bank but would help my parents a lot. I just think she's being selfish because if the roles were reversed, I would help her. Edit number 2, copying my comment here, I didn't expect this post to blow up. Just to address the elephant in the room, I can see that I'm being an a-hole and I love and appreciate my wife a lot. I'll speak to my sister about moving in my parents, like many of you suggested. However, there's not much I can do about my job. I'm almost 48 and work for the PE department at a crappy secondary school. I cannot just quit and make similar amounts to my wife who works in private equity and has multiple rental properties under her name. This post has been kind of a slap in the face and I fully expected everyone to tell me that I'm not the a-hole, but it turns out that I am. I guess it's been an emotional situation with my father, his health has been declining, and I have felt helpless to be honest, and when I found my wife can comfortably help her parents, I feel a bit betrayed and hurt. I agree that it's not her responsibility to help, but I've had sleepless nights imagining my dad at a care home, reading horror stories, and I guess I just expected my wife to be a bit more empathetic. But I agree that they are my parents, they are my responsibility. I've listened to the replies and will start looking for more remote tutor jobs so I can pick up the slack and bond more with my daughter. A part of me wants to delete this post so my wife never finds this, but I think it will keep it as a good reminder for the future. I would also like to say, my wife has very expensive taste. We live in a house that I can by no means afford with my salary. We go on multiple holidays, which I can also chip in, and my wife likes expensive presents, which I have to save up for. Even with my salary, I don't have much in my savings, and that's something I will need to talk to my wife about. And yeah guys, before I let you leave, we will read one last petty revenge story you don't wanna miss. It is titled, Performer Did Not Realize That I Was the Manager. So some years ago, my partner and I managed a bar and we had live acts every Friday night. We had inherited a few bookings from the previous managers, but we honored the bookings. One night we had a comedian who before us had performed regularly at the bar. Anyway, at the time I dressed like a student and had long dyed hair. The regulars all knew that I was the manager and had no problems with my appearance. The comedian starts his act and spots me collecting glasses and proceeds to complain about students, how lazy they are, look at this one, cannot get a proper job, what's with her hair, etc. No laughter, so he carries on laying into me. I smile and continue working. After the set, I walk over to him, give him his cash, and he's already got more dates to book with us. The joy as I said, no thanks, I'm the manager and I will never book you again. Watching his face fall was beautiful. Please post some star emojis in the comments if you enjoyed the story, and I will see you again tomorrow.